And we're calling it bee porn, would you say?
You can call it bee porn. You can call it bee smut, honey fucking material.
So this is Lustcast, and today we're going to be talking all about bee porn, which is porn where you're aroused by bees, like honeybees and I guess maybe different types of bees. And to talk about that, I'm joined by Linz from the Reddit group Honeyfuckers, which I have to say is the best name ever for a porn group on Reddit.
Thank you.
Whenever I name something, I'm going to come to you from now on, I think.
Yes. I try to take pride in my naming abilities, but this one I feel like I did it well. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, and you started the group, is that right? Or
yeah. A friend and I started it. They had a bigger hand kind of in the beginning, but they've kind of moved away a little bit. But yeah, there was just one day where I texted them and was like, you know what? Like, this is like what's been on my mind lately. And I don't think I'm alone. And I think I'm going to call my people the Honeyfuckers. And like, I still got like that text like screenshotted somewhere. It was just like the birth of a movement, you know? And I
love it. It's
and they were like, well, start it. Like, let's do it. And I was like, all right. You know, it's one of those things where I was like, oh, I can't do that alone. That's dumb. And then you got one other person behind you like, no, let's do it. And I'm like, all right, you know, what's the worst that can happen?
I love that you have friends that you can just actually talk that openly with as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think many people have that.
Yeah. They are a very interesting person. So, yeah. We still keep in contact. We met at work years and years ago, and like we were just like texting, and then occasionally we would like make these weird ass jokes to each other, and we were like, all right, I can make this weird ass joke to you. So then we just started like, it's kind of a daring process at that point of like, what more weird shit can you come up with?
Yeah, and that was like my first question really is because I think people just dipping into this, like maybe they just clicked the video or something, their first thought is just going to be, why bees? Is this real? You know, like those kind of questions. So
yeah,
I guess like
it is real. It's something a lot of people don't realize that they kind of like have a thing for until they're kind of exposed to it. Like you'll commonly see that when the subreddit gets brought up in like major subs, you know, it'll get referenced, and like half the comments will be like, oh, my eyes, you know, what a terrible day to have eyes. And the other will be like, well, it turns out I found a new fetish, or I'm into this, it turns out, or like, how awful, subscribed, you know. It goes back to like childhood for a lot of people. Like there's a bunch of old like cartoons that get brought up routinely about like, well, this was the first like bee girl I ever saw on a cartoon, and kind of like made me react in a way that I didn't quite understand. It does get brought up a lot. You know, for me, I'm an old person, so when Final Fantasy VII, I'm not sure if you're familiar with many video games.
I'm playing that right now, and I was
the remake
right
or the old one?
The remake by
yeah.
And
have you been?
I
to
saw the
bee
section. Yeah.
Okay.
They were hot bee outfits. Like
yeah. And so when that came out in 1997, you know, when you go to the honeybee, and I was 11 years old, and you know, it's like a brothel, bee themed brothel for anybody who doesn't know. And yeah, that affected me in a way that I thought that was just like the hottest thing ever. Didn't know why or anything, but you know, we were waiting on that remake to come out for years. Like we, you know, clinging to any updates that were coming out, and like we knew it was getting closer. And one day, I just told my friend, I was like, you know what, we are about to see some remade HD bee titties coming at us. These honeybee girls, like they're either going to knock this out of the park or they're going to fuck it up. And I really hope they knock it out of the park, because I want to see them HD bee tits. And that's kind of like what really got me like thirsting a little bit, where I was started like looking up, like, let's see some bees, you know what I mean? Like I kept talking about it, making references. And then eventually, I was just like, all right, we're going to do something about this. We're going to make a group and start sharing bee smut, you know?
It's really interesting that you say it happened in childhood, because like playing Final Fantasy, obviously I was playing it for the first time, and only the remake. But I felt it was a very strange game because it has a very childish tone, but then like it's very family friendly, but then with lots of swearing and really sexualized characters and like you say, a bee brothel, and it's very confusing.
The old version's even worse. It's got some very dark moments. Like one of them happens in the bee brothel, and like the hot tub scene, for anybody who's played the old one knows exactly what I'm talking about. That is very strange and very like surreal what goes on in the hot tub scene in the HoneyBee Inn. But yeah, and like there's the whole cross-dressing scene. I mean, they did that in the remake too, but we were all wondering like, how are they going to do that? 1997 was a different time. But there's a lot of strange, dark themes in that game, and and obviously we'll see how they handle the rest of the remake. But later in the game, like there's some very like strange, like imposter syndrome shit, and like mental, like. I don't want to like get too heavily into spoilers for a 20-something-year-old game. But yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like enjoy the journey while you can. If you love the remake and you finish it, pick up that old one, get it on the Switch or do something. You can get it on your phone nowadays. So it's dated. It hasn't aged the best, but it's still good though.
Yeah, and so tell me more about the community. So is it more of a hentai thing where it's like sexualizing bees in a cartoon way, or is there more?
There's kind of different genres. A good deal of it is the hentai. So some people skew in different directions. Like, you're probably familiar with like the archetypal like furry porn kind of style. There is people who skew that way, and they like to see it that way. There's people who skew in the hentai way. There is like what's so-called monster girls, which is essentially like anthropomorphic bees, like human bee hybrids. That's more like where I fall into is but there's people who like get off on like pictures and videos. Some people really enjoy the buzzing of a hive. They'll watch like live cams of hives. Like beekeepers will have live cams of hives, and they just, something about that humming and droning just really is soothing to some people, and some like to kind of
is that like
they
wow.
get
I was
off
going to say like a white noise to fall asleep to,
sort of. Yeah. If you've ever been around an agitated beehive too, like, they're getting pissed off about something, like that has a certain like sound and cadence to it. And like, if you've ever been very close, like I had an agitated beehive under a house that I lived in one time, and they got so pissed off about whatever was going on outside that I could actually like feel the vibrations in my body and stuff, because they were right under the floorboards of this house, and they were actually coming up into the corners of the room. But you could just feel the whole thing in your body, and I think that's like, I don't know, a thing that some people like kind of look for, or that's part of like their fantasy and stuff. There's some people who really get off on like literotica and stuff. I mean, we've got some authors that'll come in and they'll post their bee stories and stuff, and they can get pretty fucking intense. There's people who like to imagine themselves tiny like a bee, like being penetrated. Okay. There's some that go into that like kind of like murder me with your stinger territory. There's they want to be penetrated in a lethal way. There's a lot of different like nuance to it, and I think that's and I've been clear, like we're all honey fuckers, like we all fall under the net of honey fucking, and some people are just into the honey, like they want to fuck with honey. They're into like honey during sex, and obviously for different reasons, but to them it's like it's bee jizz, or it's like, I guess it's more bee vomit, but like it's bee juice.
It's delicious bee vomit is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and there's something very primordial and primitive about honey, and about like, I mean, you've seen the videos probably where like Aboriginals and tribes will like straight up climb a tree, get to a hive, and just stick their fist in it and start getting that honey out while the bees are just like going crazy.
I haven't seen people do that.
Yeah, people will do that shit.
Bears do it, I think. Maybe only in cartoons.
Yeah, like no, there's some hardcore motherfuckers out there that'll be getting that honey, and they don't give a fuck.
Wow.
And it's one of the most abundant like sugar sources of as far as like natural foods go, and so it's been a very prized thing in human history. And, like it keeps well, it's like so I think there's something like deeper when it comes to the honey itself.
There is something special about honey even now, because like most honey people buy, it's fake.
Right, but
it's
highly
like
processed
sugar syrup with flavor, and or like the fancy honey, is it Manuka honey?
I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, it's like one I think comes from New Zealand, but I think the global supply is something like 100 times more than the actual amount that they produce. Because a lot of people just fake it.
Water it down, or
so lucrative.
If you ever know a beekeeper that like has their own bees, like get them to get you some honey, like, you know, because we have a friend who's a beekeeper, and occasionally we'll go out there and get a little jar from her and stuff. And, you know, it's a good thing too. Like if you got allergies, like local allergies, if you eat honey from local hives, it'll actually help build up immunities from local allergies.
Oh, really?
Because the bees are all up in them flowers, you know, and like, and you know, and I think that's something else that goes back to like primitive thing about it, about like bees and flowers and the pollinating and the like rapturous covering themselves in pollen and like fornicating with the flower. You know, flowers are very like, you have a lot of imagery about, you know, vaginal things like that. So it's all just like this wound up package of like things that people are like, I feel like we're just now pulling the threads out and figuring out what is this attraction about? Why is it? And why do so many people seem to have it? You know, obviously there's some people who are just on the sub like, oh, it's funny. It's got funny memes. It's jokey, but like there's more than you would expect who are just like, I actually like this and I don't know why.
Yeah. And I think maybe it goes back to childhood. I've been trying to think myself about what's erotic about it. And I think, you know, when you're watching an old cartoon, you know, or like some old movie or something, if they use a metaphor for sex, you know, when like a couple starts having sex and then they cut to like a rocket taking off, a train going into a tunnel, I'm sure like some sort of pollination. I mean,
the birds and the bees.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly. You know? And the birds and the bees, yeah. There must be some deep sexual association that we have with bees.
Right. I mean, the stinger, the stinger penetrates. It's phallic in nature. You know, like, yeah, I've been surprised the more I like dig into it, the more I was just like, well, you know, obviously there's something deep to it. And obviously I'm not alone too. Like, you know, the sub was kind of a slow start to grow. But once the word kind of started like spreading around and we got a couple of streamers occasionally that would like bring up the subreddit and be like, y'all aren't going to believe this. And then it would just like, you know, we had little periods where it would just like pop and all of a sudden everybody's talking about it. And then, you know, we're up to like 40,000 subscribers now, which, you know, is a pretty big deal for a niche subreddit like that. Like there's doctors on Reddit who have smaller subreddits. You know what I mean? Like actual people who have like contributions to society, and like professionals and authors who have smaller subreddits.
I'm sorry, but these type of groups are my favorite on Reddit. Like, yeah, my favorite is just like very niche, strange. Like I love this one where it's just, I can't remember, I've forgotten the name of it. There's one where it's just pizzas, but things that should not be on a pizza. And it's so strange. But yeah, like just the lengths different pizza companies go to get attention. And
cookies and cream pizza, like,
all sorts. And it's just such weird pizzas, and it offends me, and I can't stop watching. I can't stop.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the best things about Reddit is the chance for, like, you know, I mean, everybody knows the one subreddit like dragons fucking cars, where it's just like, you know, dragons having sex with automobiles. Like that's the thing. And it gets brought up a lot, sometimes in the same vein as honey fuckers, like you won't believe this exists sort of a thing, you know?
I wondered if your community, is there like also a shock value aspect where people just want to create things to try and piss people off or push boundaries or just see what?
I'm sure there's an element to that, you know? And we've attracted a lot of artists and stuff. Some are very talented. Some I'm just like shocked that they're, you know, a regular part of our community. I think that's really cool. There's some that are there to try and shock you. And
there's one photo I'm thinking of particularly.
And I typically have a light hand in moderation. It's, you know, I don't own this subreddit. am not a speaker of, I am not the leader of it or anything. I try to leave it very hands off. If a post or an image is going to get downvoted, just let it be downvoted, unless it's got hate or it's vitriolic or it's just filthy and people are really pissed off about it. I'm typically don't remove it. But there are some artists, and one in particular that was posting multiple times a day, and it was just awful stuff. Like, not awful, just like trashy, just like, he'd bust out Microsoft Paint and like just, some shit that probably takes him like 5 minutes. And I was like, look, dude, gotta limit yourself to like 2 a week, something like that. Like, you just can't spam up the sub because it doesn't get a lot of action. We only get about a post a day nowadays. Maybe every couple of days, depending on what's going on. But the ones that hit, we got some banger posts that come through. Most of them are some of our regular artists and stuff. And
so the bit that interests me is definitely the sexuality aspect. So do you think, do some people incorporate this into their sex lives in some ways?
I mean, I would assume so. Like, like I want somebody to dress up like a bee for me. Like, fuck yeah.
Definitely honeybee in style.
Like, some of that thick bumblebee, abdomen there. Like, I'm sure some people do in different varying degrees, I mean, probably honey incorporation in the act is probably the most common. I doubt many people are like keeping like, bees on hand to, there's that one meme about like, you want to spice up your sex life, unleash a bee into the room while you're doing it. And like, that'll kind of get y'all a little excited. Like,
that'd just be embarrassing for me.
Yeah,
I'd be the one running around, and the girl would be like, "Huh?"
She'd be like, "Come sting me," I mean, there's anecdotes from psychologists about like dudes who like to get their like dick stung before the act because the swelling and all that like makes it like you feel it more or something. Like, obviously, that's like dubious ethically, because the sting obviously kills the bee. And I'll like, go ahead.
Yeah. So is this part of the subreddit too? Is people that are into bees itself?
It's kind of a tricky ground to walk. I wouldn't necessarily say so, just because like we don't really have anybody who talks about that. I have claimed, or I have heard of somebody that like claims that they like to, get stung before the act, but it's just probably one of those things that somebody says. It's one of those, like, I mean, we can get into the philosophy of hive creatures all day and about what drones are and about how, I mean, if you look at it, the analogy I kind of use, I used to do pest control back in the day, and, we get carpenter ants in walls. Where you get ants coming out of people's walls into different parts of their house. And the best way I could kind of like describe it to some of these people was like, you don't have ants in your walls. You have one ant in your wall, the queen ant. And until we deal, and these are all just like her fingers coming out into your house, looking for food and picking up stuff. So until we address that queen ant, you're just going to continue to have this problem. Cause some people are like, oh, just spray, like, do that. And I'm like, you don't understand. This is a hive creature, like a hive mind. Like, so obviously you can get into all that and everything. I don't really want to, but, and that was one thing that was really interesting for me when I did pest control for a while, is I got to work close to hive creatures for a while. And I got to educate people about bees quite a bit, because people tend to view bees as a problem a lot. Like, oh, I get bees in my flowers and I can't go out in my garden and I feel like I'm going to get stung. And just like explain to them, like, these are docile creatures. Like they are there for a reason. You don't want me to spray your flowers because that will kill the bees. I'm not going to spray anywhere around your flower bed. Here's some things we can do. Like, we can spread diatomaceous earth in your garden just to kill the things underneath it, but you really don't even want to do that because you want the worms and all that stuff and the grubs. Keep the spiders. You want the spiders. But the bees, I got to talk about them and deal with them a lot. Occasionally we get beehives up in people's like up in their corner of their house, in their roof. And, I'd be like, all right, here's some people that'll come take that hive out for you, and they're going to take it and they're going to, go take it to a safe place and use it for honey, relocate them for you. And then, occasionally we get to see bees swarm where they're moving nests, and all of a sudden, like, somebody will have like their big window up on their house just covered in bees, and like they'll call us and be like, "Oh my God, bees everywhere! Come help me!" And by the time I get out there, bees are gone because they've already moved on, and like they'll be piled up in trees, and people will be all panicked, and I'll be like, come out there and be like, wow, like, check that out. And, oh no, that's fine. You just give it an hour and they'll be on their way, and like, it gives you a chance to kind of like take some of the demonization out of bees. And people tend to mix up wasps and bees or yellow jackets and bees quite a bit. And they'll be like, oh, I got bees. And I'll come look and be like, you got wasps. And yeah, those aren't great. Like, yeah, we can do something about them. But, so that was kind of an interesting time in my life where I got to be around bees a lot and think about them a lot, and just like get them to like land on your cup and stuff. And like, hey, little buddy, and all that stuff.
Yeah, like this week I found myself, because of the group, like just checking out so many bee facts and like wondering like what's the difference between bees, wasps, and hornets and things like this. And seems they're quite useful, like all three.
Yeah, they all have their uses for sure.
Yeah. I feel like your group's made me appreciate bees more. And wasps.
An interesting thing about wasps is they do make it into the group occasionally. There's one in particular, I forget the artist's name, but they're big on Twitter, and that wasp girl gets posted and rises to the top of our subreddit like quite often. Like if you sort by top of all time, she's going to be one of, I think it's like by radio or something, I think is the Twitter artist, but it's a particular bee girl, but she's a wasp. And a lot of people don't realize that, or it gets pointed out, asininely every time it gets brought up, but like people tend to not really care. And
I was going to ask if there's like people get infuriated that no, it's not a bee, it's a wasp. Or
yeah, there are people who
people do.
Some people take it very seriously, and some people hate memes on the subreddit. If it's not straight porn, if it's not fapping material, they don't want it on there. And there's a couple of offshoot subreddits that are like claimed to be porn only. That's fine. Like, I don't typically let people promote them, but like, they're very easy to find. You can go check them out and everything, but they're usually just stuff that gets posted on ours, get cross posted over there. But it just irritates me, the people who are just so serious. I'm like, no, keep your memes out of my porn subreddit. It's like, I mean, learn to laugh a little bit. Like, it's a strange thing, even if it wasn't a strange thing, it's okay to laugh about it and make jokes about it. And some of those memes are fucking funny. Like,
no, there's some good ones.
Yeah. So we can have both, Yeah.
And like that's the strange thing is that, I'm not really into nature so much. I think I just don't think about the natural world too much. I just live my life and
city boy.
Don't see it. Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
And it was interesting just to like go from a porn subreddit to then I was in co-working space where I work, and I got caught watching bee porn on Pornhub, which was quite funny.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw, but they had a campaign about saving
a couple years ago.
Yeah. So
yeah, that was I loved that, and I was so happy that my sub happened to exist at the same time that Pornhub was doing the bee thing. Like that was very cool. That was great. Yeah.
And it's just and it's just there with it's just pollination, and I can't even describe it. It's I don't know, but I felt like I kind of got caught, like when someone looked over then they saw like the Pornhub logo and then just bees, and they didn't say anything. They just like walked off.
They talked about it, I'm sure. Just you got talked about, you got outed. Probably went off talking about this guy's a honey fucker, like
I would just love to be in his next conversation.
Yeah. I'm sure you're in the next couple, so probably found 3 people to tell, and But yeah, at least I don't know. I was gonna say at least it's regular bees and not like cartoon bees, because I don't know which is like harder to explain away to somebody. Like,
yeah, I feel like actually watching bees do their thing was kind of weirder just because of the Pornhub logo. It's just
well, and they had the adult film stars like doing voiceovers for it and stuff. And I don't know if you knew that. Like, if you're watching on mute, you wouldn't have heard it. Yeah.
No, I remember I looked over and I was like, no, I'm not going to explain. I was like, I'm doing a podcast. Like, no, just don't say anything.
Yeah, it's better to let that stuff just go unsaid. You know? And for all you know, like they're already on the subreddit, you know, and they were just like didn't want to mention it just because they'd out themselves, you know.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And do you get like bad reaction from people, like say when they first go into the group, or?
Occasionally I'll just, you know, I'll see people like, oh, that's disgusting. Y'all are disgusting. And it's just like, whatever, you fucking prude, like, get over yourself. Like, you know, whether you have a sense of humor or not, like there's some people who are like extremely offended by it, but it's just like, if that's the worst thing you're going to see this year, like, I'm fucking sorry, dude. Like, you know, there's a lot of more egregious things out there, sexual and not, to be offended by. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some drawings though, and some things like, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, as the like curator of this thing, I pretty much see everything, you know, everything that gets removed quickly and not, which isn't very much, but I have seen some pretty egregious things. Nothing like, you know, over the bounds of like legality or anything like that, but I've seen some shit where I'm just like, damn, I never thought I'd see that in my life. And here I am, like, you know, and no, I guess I'm not going to remove it. Like, there it goes. And then it'll get downvoted or whatever. But it's just, you know,
what's
it's
the
like I said,
craziest thing you've seen?
Some of the just like, I don't know, like conglomeration of body part, like the futanari thing is, you know, the Japanese thing about like just throwing a big old dick on stuff. Like, some like how would I say this? Like insect intersectional, like, you know, bees like doing other insects. For some reason, bees having sex with other insects is strange to me. Like, yeah, of all the things that could be weird, like seeing bees like, you know, borderline raping other insects with their stingers. That's a little, you know what I mean? Like that gets me kind of shaking my head a little bit. I guess depictions of any kind of like sexual violence kind of like, you know, get me shaking my head, but something about interspecies, gangbangs and things like that. And most of that stuff doesn't really make it to the sub. That makes it to more like, insects sub, which is it's similar to honeyfuckers, but it's just about insects in general.
Yeah.
You know, praying mantises getting on with ladybugs and, there is a hentai from like the 80s, I think the late 80s, called The Bondage Fairies. And it's about these two fairy girls with like, they're just like straight fairies, but they live in an insect world basically. And they're getting fucked by insects all the time, by beetles, by praying mantises, like every insect you can imagine fucks these two girls. And I saw that at a very early age, and that probably like colored some of my experience as well. About that like idea of something that's small and harmless and, you know, doesn't, you know, can't interact with you in that way, and imagining what if they could, you know, what if a stag beetle could fuck you with its giant dong, like that kind of stuff.
Well, people have a problem with this, just with porn in general. People have this difficulty to separate entertainment from reality, usually the critics.
Right.
And for some reason, if it's sexual entertainment, suddenly everything is real, you know? It's like and it can't just be like playful or just for entertainment purposes.
Right. Belongs to the realm of fantasy.
Yeah. It's like, you know, they can be completely fine with a horror movie and people being stabbed to death and brutally tortured. They're like, it's just entertainment. It's not real. People know it's not real. Right. But if you start, you know, drawing sexualized characters of animals, whatever, any, you know, they're not real, they're drawings. But like, oh, this is encouraging, you know, bestiality or whatever, you know. Like,
yeah,
my friend,
I saw a hentai drawing just the other day of like a dude making out with a chick and below his desk, like chick was like I guess his wife or girlfriend was like sucking him off. And like somebody in the comments was like, way to promote adultery and shit. And somebody was like, well, how do you know it's adultery? And they were like, look at his hand. He's got a ring on. And I was like, how about it's just a fucking cartoon? Like, you know?
Yeah. In adultery in a TV show, they would just be like, oh, it's part of the drama. It's part of the story. It's like provoking an emotion, which is the same, art is doing the same thing. Yeah, it's triggering emotions and our senses and our memories. But people don't get that with porn. It's always been strange to me. There's this fear that people are going to just copy it, I think.
Yeah.
Or it's going to change you somehow.
Yeah, I know what you mean about like, there's things like, rape play and like consensual, non-consensual bondage and stuff like that. And all those like realms of fantasy that people get very uncomfortable with, even sometimes at the mere mention of them. And the people who are into that stuff, like they'll tell you like, I couldn't be in a safer environment. Like I am with somebody I trust more than you can imagine. Like we have a relationship that is deeper than probably anyone you've ever had. And a lot of those people who are able to do those with partners or multiple partners, polyamorous groups and things like that, who are able to engage in some of that stuff that requires deep level of trust. Like, it's just something I think it's hard for people to imagine, giving somebody that kind of control over you and trusting them to do the right thing and to take care of you in a certain way. So I guess on one hand, I kind of get where the critics are coming from, but on the second hand, like, I think it's just a lack of empathy in some ways and about that whole, like, I know what's best for you kind of mentality about like, well, we're protecting people with our opinions and, we're limiting sexual violence. And when you engage in fantasies about these things, it means you want to go out and do them. And like, it means you're more likely to do them or you're normalizing it and all that fucking trash,
Yeah. And the thing is, like you say, we are influenced by the sexual art we see, but that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. If you see sexualized cartoons, it just becomes something exciting you can tap into when you're older. Like an extra
exactly.
string in your bow. So it's almost like I feel like maybe they're afraid that they will like it themselves,
Yeah. Yeah. People who have a problem with that, I tend to think that they got a problem with themselves. It's not a problem that they have with the content necessarily. It's that it bothers them because, it bothers them the way it makes them feel, and not necessarily like, oh, they're just all closeted repressors or whatever, but it's people who have trouble unraveling their own emotions and articulating their own thoughts and all that stuff. I think who have the real problem with it. And of course, some people are very religious and you just have that line where you shall not cross certain lines and all that,
There must be some sexualization of bees in the Bible somewhere. Should have found
I'm sure. Yeah. And anybody who is savvy in the Bible, if you know of a verse or any reference to honey or hives, please post it on the subreddit because I'd be fascinated to learn about that.
Yeah. It's like, something is in my head, but I can't remember what. It's like, but
yeah. I could imagine a couple of like comments or verses or whatever, but it's like, yeah.
I'm just thinking of like the land of milk and honey or something like that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah. Honey, is like I said earlier, it's a very primitive substance of like high desire. Like I'm pretty sure it's been like, not like used as currency, but it's like up there with like gold in the old days. Cause it's a high sugar source and sugar is so in demand, for the body, and it's just so hard to get. You see, if we didn't have all the candy we have now, like honey would still be our jam, like the one thing we can get,
Imagine being a beekeeper before they invented those protective suits.
Yeah. Well,
that must have been a job.
That is an interesting thought because so one thing about bees is like it's said that they can kind of like smell fear. They can like when your cortisol levels, stress levels in the body produce pheromones, smells, basically. Animal, like, they say, oh, the lion can like smell your fear. Like bees can smell that shit. They can tell if you're anxious, they can tell if you're nervous, and they'll react to that. They'll go into protection mode. I've seen beekeepers remove beehives from ceilings with wearing no protective gear, and they're not getting stung. And they claim it's because they do it so often. They're so used to it. They know how to regulate their body's blood flow and their heartbeat. their stress levels. And so I mean, there's YouTube videos where people are just like getting up there into roofs and they're standing on ladders and they're pulling away planks, and they're not being real gentle about how they're removing the honeycomb either. Like, I mean, they're working it out, pulling it, and then putting it in bags and stuff. And the bees, they're flying around, they're buzzing, they're crawling on them and stuff, but they're not stinging and they're not agitated. And it's fascinating to me. But I'm assuming some of the early beekeepers had to have like keyed into that vibe. And that's probably what separated a successful beekeeper from an unsuccessful one, is one could, do it better and not get stung a bunch. And I'm sure if you get stung enough you build up a good resistance anyway to where it doesn't bother you.
Yeah. Like when you get used to something, you just get used to that pain. But I can't imagine that, that throbbing after it's stung, like that daze and that itchy feeling. I couldn't imagine that. Just mosquitoes are bad enough. So
I swell up bad with mosquitoes. And I never got stung by a bee the whole time I was doing pest control, except for one bumblebee. I was driving in my truck with the window down, and this big fat bumblebee, not like a honeybee, but one of the black bumblebees. Maybe he's a carpenter bee, I'm not sure, but he flew down the back of my shirt while I'm driving like 60 miles an hour. Like I felt this thing go down the back of my shirt, and I was like, what? And he stung me in the back, and like I pulled over, jumped out of the truck, and like got him out of there, and like and it was fine. And then the next day I woke up and it was so swollen, like, but I did not swell up until like a full 24 hours later. It was the strangest thing. But yeah, like I'd walk through gardens and there'd be bees everywhere on the flowers, certain times of morning and day, and I would not catch a single sting. Or, and luckily, bees are one of those insects that they'll warn you before if they're getting agitated, they'll do what's called plinking, where they'll come and just fly into you and just kind of plink you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, without stinging you, just to let you know that you're like too close to whatever they don't want you near. Yeah, they'll give you a little warning before they just go into full lose their shit mode, and which
is there a hierarchy of bees that people like in the group? Like, is the honeybee, I guess, the main one? Or
I would say the honeybee is probably the typical one that you'll see. Bumblebees would probably be a close second. There's a variety of types of colors and everything when it comes to bees. I think there's something about the black and yellow color pattern that gets people too. There's something primitive about that, I believe, too. And I'm not, I mean, the way that like, some like moths will have false eyes on their wings because it scares predators, or something like deep about like large eyes that can ward off predators. That idea of like you're being watched, like, and certain animals are tapped into that, like we are too. Big sunglasses like the cops like to wear, the aviators and stuff. They're shown to be very intimidating to people. And
black and yellow is a very bold color.
It is. Like it's a very rare one in nature too.
Yeah, it's very rare in fashion even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I was trying to think, I haven't seen anyone wear black and yellow until today, obviously.
Yeah. Right.
But
it's a hard look to pull off, and if you are, people are going to immediately think that you're doing it like as a bee thing, Yeah,
well, the reason Sting is called Sting is because he used to wear a black and yellow jumper as a kid. And that's how he got the nickname
Sting. I never knew that.
Yeah. For your next post.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I found a picture of him in that jacket. I never knew that. That never crossed my mind that would have been why they call him Sting.
Yeah, his schoolmates called him that.
Wow, it's kind of a dope,
really cool
handle to pick up there. Is like, that's why they called you Sting, huh? I like that.
We've talked a lot about like the hentai aspect, and the thing is, like, obviously, like when I was reading about this, I found out that Melissaphilia is a real paraphilia. So that's like the love of bees, and that's really interesting to me. That there's a paraphilia for something so niche.
Yeah,
and
is it particularly bees, or is it also like include stinging insects? I can't remember.
I believe it's bees, but let me just check.
It's particularly bees. Yeah.
I mean, it comes from ancient Greek, and it's ancient Greek for honeybee and also for love. Okay. And that fascinates me as well. Just the fact that it's like even the ancient Greek word for honeybee is also a word for love. Right, so like this like this thing about the honeybee and love and eroticism just must have been around for such a long time. And yeah, so they say real Melissaphilia, and obviously I don't think this is like not what your group is, but I just think it's fascinating. They describe it as a zoophilia, like, which is attraction to animals, but it's like a sub one. And there's a general insects one called formicophilia, where I'm really brushing up on my Greek or Latin, whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
So real Melissaphilia is someone that would fall in love with a bee or have the desire to have sex with a bee. Some people, and I use the word apparently, catch bees with the intention of getting them to sting them. But we're not really sure how true it is. And it's strange to me that there's actual psychology written about this. And then when you look at anecdotes from psychologists, no one's ever like treated one, you know? So it's like they've got all this literature on it, but I don't think anyone's actually met someone with Melissaphilia that needs treatment.
Yeah, so, and that sounds like a challenge the way you're phrasing that too. Now we're gonna have people like, you know, I'll prove what I do. Like, you know, it's like I'll document it right now. Like, like
please do. Like, it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's probably exceedingly rare. But I mean, I'm sure it's probably not just dudes either. Like, you know, I'm sure there's chicks that enjoy, you know, down there singing or.
Yeah, that seems to be the thing. Is there's I don't know how true this is. I don't know if people in your Reddit group have discussed this, but it seems like people do use bees in order to make their penis bigger, and this has been documented. So apparently, I'm sure some idiots are going to try this now, but apparently if a bee stings your dick, it can make your dick bigger. But
so they say.
I
mean, I assume it's true. And supposedly it has more feeling too, is the other side of that, is that, you know, it's swollen, there's more blood in there, like the sensation is heightened. You know, a lot of people like to mix pain with sex anyway, so I'm sure that plays a role in it.
Right, yeah, and I'm not sure if this is like permanent enlargement or
probably
just temporary. Yeah, I don't. From the anecdotal stuff that I found, it sounded like it might work, you know? But I'm not sure if that's just because it wasn't clear from what I was reading. I was reading like a psychologist that's treated patients that have used bees to make their dick bigger. And he just says it like it's like just a thing that everyone should know, you know. It's like, I'm like, tell me more. I need to know if this works or not. I'm sure
how big they are in aphrodisiacs, you know, like anything to make it bigger and harder, you know, they're willing. I mean, if they're gonna, you know, hunt fucking tigers for their, you know, like, or maybe not like rhinos for their horns and shit, like, I don't know, a single bee sting to the dick seems a lot less like ethically horrible as far as like hunting an entire like animal for an aphrodisiac. And, you know, I mean, some countries are real big on that, unfortunately, but you know, a bee seems like, I don't know, more environmentally friendly because it's, you know, queen bee laying lots of eggs, like, you know.
Yeah, I just really need to know if being stung in the penis by a bee makes it bigger.
You know, there's only one way to find out.
I know.
Like,
I just.
I mean, report back. Like, let us know.
Yeah. It just fascinates me so much. People that I just love that someone at some point must have thought, I wonder if like getting stung here.
You know, it probably happened on accident. The first time somebody was like fucking around in a garden naked and like caught a bee sting, and they're like, oh, this sucks. And then 20 minutes later, they're like, this is kind of rad. Like, you know, come here, baby. Let me try this out on you. You know, they both loved it. And so I don't know, that would be an interesting situation to be a fly on the wall in.
Yeah, it really fascinates me. And imagine if it did work and we've just been, because all those like penis enlargement ads you see when you're online, at least that I seem to see, like none of them work. Obviously, everything's a scam. Yeah. But what if bees were the secret all along?
You know, I mean, you can get ants mailed to you for like ant farms. Like, what if you could get like 3 like bees who have been selectively bred to just like have the most potent sting, you know, so get some Africanized honeybees like sent to your house. It'd be like, all right, take no more than 1 every 24 hours. Like, you know.
Yeah, or maybe there's just like one of a specific breed makes it bigger, and maybe a different breed makes it wider, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, 20 years from now, this could all be just like accepted scientific fact and very marketable for all we know. Like,
yeah, the official like synthesized honey fucker bee sting penis enlarger that he'll be selling soon.
Yes. And I must say, there are some people who get very wound up and offended at the thought of killing a bee for a sting. You know what I mean? So to those people, I do not condone the killing of bees, and I don't believe Tommy does either. So
no, I definitely don't.
Don't fucking lynch us, okay? And you know what I mean? Like, don't cancel us. Don't lynch us. Like,
I'm here for the science. I just want to know if it works.
Exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, much worse things have been done in the name of science and sexual science, you know. So
yeah, it's really interesting as well because Melissaphilia, in theory, would be classed as bestiality.
Yeah, bestiality, right? Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, oh god,
yeah. Sorry, I didn't resist.
I'm just sad I missed it.
I'm shocked. So actually,
yeah, but then there is this thing. It's like it is with mammals and with lizards and things like that. With birds, we would see it as cruel to kill a bird. But I think with insects, most people are okay with it, and they wouldn't class it as animal cruelty to kill an insect.
Yeah, people kill insects all day long. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, though bees, are they endangered? I think they might be. I don't know.
I think the hive collapse thing was kind of an issue here in the States a few years ago. From what I've read, that is no longer an issue. You know, we can talk about saving the bees all day as like movements and everything and educating people about bees. That's all great because that's what that has like brought about. And, but to my knowledge, they're not suffering the unexplained collapse the way they were 7-8 years ago. So I don't know I don't think they're on the endangered list.
Yeah, I
feel like they got removed by Trump. And of course, you know, some people are like, oh, you know, of course, but I think it's just because scientists were saying like they're no longer in threat like they were. So of course, you know, correct me on that if I'm wrong. But I believe that's the case. You know,
I heard mixed things. Like some people say yes and some people say no.
And of course, you know, insecticides are widely used and abused. And you know, working in the pest control industry, I saw other techs abusing severely, you know, egregious abuses of insecticides and things, overusing, spraying flowers, spraying shrubs, mostly children and idiots and people who shouldn't hold a license out there, just going crazy with their spray because it's cheaper for them to just go spray somebody's flowers for spiders than it is to just educate them or, you know, shit like that. I mean, I've seen things that really piss me off, but it's just at the same time, you know, I work in a red state and like very few people really care about the environment. It's like, you know, even like trying to like report them or something like wouldn't go anywhere. It was just kind of thing. Like, you know, I saw one of the worst thing I saw was, you know, I was talking about how hives move occasionally. Well, there was a construction company, and we did a lot of houses. We work with construction companies a lot of time, but they couldn't work the rest of the day because a hive was passing through and landed on their construction site on their house that was still framed up. And the workers were like, no, I ain't going to go hammering anywhere near that thing. And so they actually called my boss out. They called me first, and I was just like, well, I'll come check it out. And I went and looked and was like, yep, you got a hive and they're on the move. Like, you give it 24 hours and they'll be out of here. Well, they didn't like that answer because that cut into their productivity. They needed those guys to work.
Wow, just one day.
Wow. Yeah. So they, you know, called my boss out, who got the sprayer off his truck and just sprayed that whole thing, killed that whole nest. And it's just like, it was really hard to watch. And it was awful. It was unprofessional. It was, and that's probably the reason I'm not in that industry anymore. It's just, you see enough to where, you just kind of done. And of course it's like, there's also the ethical thing of like, how many insects have I killed? Like indirectly or directly, like, it's panpsychism aside, it's debatable about which creatures on this planet have consciousness and which don't, and which have varying degrees of consciousness. But even if you grant that some have proto-consciousness or some type of consciousness, I've killed a lot of shit out there. Ants, like a lot of things. And it's just like, at some point I've got to sit with that knowledge that as a pest control tech, I, killed a lot of fucking things. I'm like a bug executioner, and do with that knowledge with what you will.
This group is like your redemption.
In some ways I feel like it. So you might be able to tell just by the bullshit that I talk, but I got my bachelor's degree in philosophy years ago, and I used to be the president of the philosophy club, and I was known as the B, at the time, B guy, because I had a lot of philosophical thoughts and ruminations about how, as humans, our motivations, we're not entirely aware of our own motivations. We don't always know why we do the things we do.
Definitely.
And I argued it was in some part due to this idea that we are, as a species, we're not unlike bees and ants and hive creatures, that we are a type of hive mind. And I also had
I agree completely with that.
Yeah, because I'd find myself just doing things and wanting things and thinking things that I didn't really felt like I had control over. But they actually gifted me this when I retired being president of the philosophy club. It is a bee. Oh, it's got a crack in it. Forgot about that. It's a bee jar with a rock in it, because I argued again about like proto-consciousness, and you didn't know what was conscious and what isn't, but it's a rock. Because I was like, well, there's probably something that it's like to be a rock. And so they gave me a pet rock in a beehive jar, basically, to like commemorate. And they all signed it and shit. And like, I'm talking about like, cool. I got my pet rock here. But so I've been on about the whole bee thing. And this was years before I, decided I wanted to do the subreddit and stuff like that. But I've been, thinking about, hive mentality for a while, and the implications of it as on us as a species, so but there's that.
No, I definitely agree. I could go into that, but I think I don't want to get too sidetracked, because I think I'd go into such a random topic.
It is very random. It's just like I wanted to clarify to everybody.
No, it's really interesting.
I've been on about this shit for a while, and people have known about it for a while, so much so that they gave me that shit.
And I think we should look at some of the posts from your group.
Yeah,
because I think people would like to see them. Okay, so I opened yours first, so hopefully you can see this.
Yes, I can.
Yeah, this is one.
Yeah.
It really
that's one of my.
Like that.
It's one of my old favorites.
Wow. So she's really thick.
Isn't she though? She's got that honey on her and
nice thighs.
That is one of my favorite images, and you'd be surprised. It took us a while to find the artist for that one, because that one popped up. That was one of the first images that spurred on the subreddit. And I think it's one of the ones that'll come up here in a minute. But that was like one of the first things I saw that I was just like, all right, like I am not the only one. We are doing this. Like we are making this group. But
and anyone can see why that's erotic, surely.
Yeah, surely, right?
Yeah. And even the wings, it's something extra to grab
the antennas, right? The wings, like everything about it, like the little fluff around the neck, like fuck yeah.
And I really appreciate that the honey has censored this, so I think YouTube will be okay.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
We did one on peeing recently, and I had to censor so much. It was just everything was censored.
That's a shame.
Yeah. Okay, this is the next one.
Yes, and this is one I made because I am proud of it.
Nice.
But, yeah, and some of these memes, a lot of these are from 4 years ago, so a lot of these formats were popular 4 years ago, and they're not typically now. But I think it's an interesting little time capsule.
That's funny.
But yeah, her ex. A lot of people thirsting after her ex there. Yeah, and yeah.
Yeah, you is just brilliant.
Very on point, I thought. So
yeah.
Yes, again, another format that was popular 4 years ago. That is not so much now, but I still think it's hilarious. And look at that one in the middle. Isn't she just looking fucking thick though? But the one on top though. No.
Yeah, see, I think I prefer them when they're more human. You see?
Yeah.
Like the first one was definitely the hottest for me.
Yeah.
But I this one's harder for me to get. But I still see there's like
the appeal though, don't you?
Yeah, I see the appeal.
And it comes on the hands and feet for some people too. It's like,
Yeah, it's more subtle, this one.
Yeah.
Like the other one, it's like starting with the person and adding B. And this one's more starting with the B and adding bits of person.
Right. But look at them wings, though. Like, what I'm saying?
The wings are good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this. Wow, what's going on here? But
fancy queen bee with a big ass stinger. You got that phallic imagery.
Yeah, I got everything going on here. Honeycomb as well.
Yes, the honeycomb pattern. Yeah, I haven't even don't even get me started on the honeycomb pattern. They say it's like nature's like most perfect structure.
What makes it perfect?
The stability of it, I think it is. The way the pieces fit together and the structure itself is like very strong. I'm sure there's some people who could express it a lot better than I can, but I've heard it referred to as like in the animal kingdom, like the most perfect structure is a honeycomb.
Okay, let's have another one. Oh yeah, she's back.
So this was the original post. You see it's posted up there 4 years ago. The one that rose up in Animemes that got me convinced that I had to do something. Like I saw that and people were responding to it and I told my friend, I was like, boom, I am not the only one. Like people are turned on.
Yeah.
Like, shit, we are fucking doing this. Like
this is very funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious, isn't it? Like nobody could source that image either. Like you see people in the comments asking for a source, and like even when it found its way to our subreddit for a while, people were, hey, source on this source, and like nothing was coming up until we found the artist on Twitter and found the original image, and then I
would love if this really was a WikiHow. That'd be so cool.
I know, yeah, and some people are like, this is real, right? Like I can't find the page, and it's like, yeah.
I love how sincere people are when they see things on the internet. Just anywhere. I think people always want to believe everything they read.
Right. Yeah, they do. Yeah, part of them needs to think that it's all real. Yeah. But yeah, I just picked those mostly because they're all very old and they're hard to find because Reddit's not a great app on anything, and it's hard to get to some of these old posts. You can't sort by oldest on Reddit, so it's like, I mean, not that I know of.
So I find it hard to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, you can sort by top of all time, but the sub was so much smaller back then that the top posts are nowhere near the top these days. But we had some that were on the top for the first year or two that were just to me like iconic, but you hard pressed to find them now. So I deliberately wanted to go find some of those.
Cool. Yeah, and I want to show you what things my assistant pulled out. So I don't know what exactly. She made 2 folders, a safe for work and a not safe for work folder. Oh yeah, wow.
What is that?
This isn't. Is this real or is this? No, it's drawn, isn't it? It's like 3D.
It looks like a 3D image. I don't know. It could be like a ceramic piece, though.
Yeah. I mean, that looks really cool. Just as an object, it's really cool.
Is it a butt
I wouldn't have thought. I don't know, maybe. It's hard to tell, isn't it?
Might perforate something in there. It's a beat.
Yeah, big stinger. Really big stinger. Just showing off.
Well, yeah, you're showing off for sure.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have thought of that as a sexualized image, but I guess if you're into bees, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I guess everything bee is by definition phallic.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call this phallic. The stingers put up. There's something about the thickness of that abdomen there. That I think, I don't know if it's like, I don't know what the primitive draw is to that, but that juicy booty.
Yeah. But it seems like the bee girls generally are quite thick. Is that because bees are generally thick, I guess?
I'm guessing so. I'm guessing it has to do something with it, but yeah, I do like that one a lot. The antennas are great. The floof, I don't know what it is about the floof around the neck and sometimes the wrist that kind of does it for me.
Yeah, and cool. Oh, they've really gone to town on the feet.
And the veiny wings, I don't know. Yeah, because I noticed a lot of the wings do have the veiny structure. I don't know if that's like a penis thing, because you think of like penis like being like veiny. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, there's the one.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I might actually try this one just for giggles, to be honest.
Yeah.
It just sounds like something funny to do. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
have you ever tried it?
I have not. I can't say that I have. Yeah. So one day though.
Yeah. One for the sexual bucket list, definitely. If anyone has tried it, please tell us how it went.
Right. Yeah. Did the bee just kind of go find a corner to chill, or did it actually buzz around?
Yeah. And this is just art, right? This is a dildo with flowers and bees inside.
Right. Yeah, and that goes back to the whole birds and the bees thing. There's definitely something very just erotic about the whole pollination thing. I remember that one. That reminds me of that one post about Cleopatra. Of course it's just probably not true, but that she would feel like something like a dildo with bees, and she supposedly invented the vibrator because she'd get a bunch of angry bees in a phallic structure and use it to masturbate. Yeah, and there's some rumor that she had one of those, but it's, from what I've looked into, it's probably not true. But it's fun to think about.
Yeah, that's a hell of a rumor to last 2,000 years. It's
imagine if 2,000 years from now, you were thought to, that was your contribution, or one of the things you were known for was how awful or wonderful, I guess.
I think wonderful. Okay, what we got next? Oh
my Lord, I have not seen this one. Actually, I have not seen this one. And this is in the safe for work folder there. That's oh my
She's
God,
Hungarian,
the little dots of red. Jesus Christ. That is something else. Wow.
I love how the assumption is that if you put honey on yourself, the bees are going to come sting you for stealing their honey.
They're there for the honey or something, or it attracts them or something like that. Yeah.
It's woo, party time.
That is funny. Wow. I just love that one.
Yeah, that's really fun. I even love the honey leaking from the screen.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody had fun making that one. That's cute.
It's really fun.
I have not seen that one either. That is hilarious. Let me pollinate them does. That's great. I love that.
So this mixing foot fetish and bees. I guess it would tickle, maybe. Who knows?
That is fun. That is some funny shit. Oh,
I love these.
I don't know how
She's done a good job.
Yeah.
And that bee looks a bit moody, to be honest.
I know, he's a little mischievous there. He's rubbing his hands together let me get at these. That is too good.
Okay, what we got? Yeah. But this is I must say, there is this romantic notion of dying during sex, I think.
Right. Yeah, I think there may be a term for that. But I am not. I only know some the darker angles of that. But yeah, I do know what you mean. Yeah,
like with some spiders that like eat their partner after having sex.
The idea of the femme fatale, the deadly encounter sort of a thing. Like, sex so good, it's like the last thing you do. Like, people are like, oh, if I could just die having sex, it would be the perfect way to go,
Yeah, like imagine how bad it is for the person left behind. But it's like for the idea of it for you personally, it's always like, yeah, that's how I want to go. Just like a big
death
orgy
by
or something.
snoo from Futurama. The idea of getting fucked to death by large women, like, yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's okay. What's this? Oh, so this is like the typical. No, it's not typical.
Oh, it's just like a little dude like on the flower. Like I can't tell what he's saying, but it's just like come pollinate me sort of a thing.
Yeah. And how big of is the being stung the biggest eroticism, would you say, in this?
I think it's I wonder if it's more the actual getting stung or the implication or the threat of getting stung. That's a turn on, the tantalizing thought of, especially if you're the size of the bee, because that sting's gonna fucking kill you, or like it will be your last, or it's just like that idea of like ultimate penetration, It's like, I think, the idea of penetrating and being penetrated is, again, like, I feel like a broken clock, but just saying like, the idea, it's a very primitive, like primordial kind of a thing. It's a fear for a lot of people, but it's also like, it's like a tantalizing fear. And, gay
so
or
I wasn't
straight.
Sure if it was I wasn't sure if it was like the pain itself or the penetration itself,
Right. And probably a little bit of both. Wrapped up there a little bit, and usually things we think are going to hurt a lot more than they actually do.
Would you say you have like more male or female members, or
it's a pretty good mix? I would say we probably have more male members, and we've got a lot of non-binary members too. The bee has become kind of an icon in certain like LGBTQ subreddits.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm trying to think. I think it's the bisexual one, and even some of the transgender ones have kind of like taken bees. Like, I think it was. Do you remember that place thing that Reddit did a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
Big canvas. Like, if you look at the trans flag, there, I think a bee did pop up on it at one point.
Okay, yeah, it kept changing, didn't it? So I didn't see it all the time.
Yeah, towards the end there, a lot of like animals, like the blahaj, the shark, which is an iconic transgender icon, wound up on the flag, as well as a few other creatures. I'm pretty sure a bee did too. But yeah, one of the big posts was on a bisexual subreddit about bees, and that kind of got more people into our subreddit too. Bisexual people,
Bisexual. I like bisexual.
Yeah.
And then this is literally bees making out, and it's censored.
It's YouTube friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if those are one's smaller than the other. Is one a bumblebee and one's a honeybee or something?
Yeah, it's hard to tell, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Rightfully censored, though. Give them their privacy, like.
Yeah, it's always bugged me that like we can watch animals fucking. Sorry, it's always annoyed me that we can watch animals fucking in a nature documentary, but if it's humans doing it, no, right. It's bad. It's dangerous.
I mean, animals watch us fuck all the time. That's glorious. That is glorious. That person you've never been that happy in your life. That person
is that real? Do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It looks a little shopped around the cheeks, but nothing. I mean, I've seen people do that. Well, they'll put the pheromone on them, the queen pheromone, and like wear a bee suit essentially and walk around. So I could see that being real, but it just kind of looks a little shopped to me.
Yeah.
But
that is like my biggest fear, probably.
Just being
that many, not even just bees, just being covered by so many insects of any kind.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to find your like inner peace in that moment, and like, don't freak out. Like,
yeah. Where he's just playing the clarinet, maybe.
I mean, I get that. I just want to know what he's playing.
Yeah.
I just want to know.
Obviously, Flight of the Bumblebee.
Ah, of course. Yeah. Of course.
Oh, there we go. The uncensored. Do they really have sex like this? Or is this Photoshop?
I think so. I think one of them dies during it too. Like I think the stinger breaks off or something. Like I don't know. It could have just been like a factoid I saw, but yeah. I'm not as well educated on true bee anatomy as I really probably should be. But I think I saw that just the other day, talking about some biology about what was actually going on here.
Well, this is just a beautiful photo.
Isn't it though? Like imagine if that was your photo. Like that's a good shot. I mean, insects are hard to photograph, especially like in flight like that. And like,
those macro lenses are hard to use.
Yeah.
And this is, it is just a good photo. But I don't know if that's erotic to people that are into bees. Because I feel like it's more about the stinger, isn't it? Than like actual sex.
Yeah.
Or more about the pollination. I could see
putting that framed up on a wall though. Yeah, that's
it's nice. Just a beautiful photo, really.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. See, that's what I'm saying. Like there's some like the little fucking thing up her butt. Like there are some that just like, wow. And of course she's in a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios, Honey Nut Cheerios. Like, Wow. That's all I got for that one. Wow.
Is that your favorite breakfast cereal, I'm assuming?
I was actually eating not Honey Nut Cheerios, but just regular Cheerios for quite a while in the mornings. But Honey Nut tend to be very sugary, and I try to avoid sugar as best I can.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah,
and that movie, Bee Movie, we call the lady in that movie, I don't know her name, the original honey fucker, because,
okay.
Because it's like, she's into that fucking bee, and the you like jazz line and all that shit, like that's
okay.
That's something that's fucking hot, like, and technically really that's just honey, like, and that's the term honey fucker, it encompasses, if you fuck with honey, bees are like synonymous with honey, like it's all good. But I guess technically you'd call that like a slime girl, I think is the subgenre.
A slime girl. Oh, that's actually a genre. Wow.
Yeah. I think they have their own subreddit.
That's just a very cool thing.
Yeah.
And I love how they've used the stick that you get the honey out the jar with to
Right.
make that sexual. I never thought of that as a sexual object before. Next time I have a tea with honey in it, it's just going to be a different experience for me.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one.
That's very cool. Wow.
Oh yeah, look at that.
The pollen.
Isn't that beautiful? Like that's another photo. I would just frame that and put it up on the wall.
Yeah, I mean it's just a great photo.
Right. Like, yeah, and the idea of like covering yourself in this like, substance, this just like abandon of decency, and just like letting yourself go and be covered, and the pollen and all that. There's something deeply erotic about that, I think, too. Yeah.
See, I'm personally, I don't like the thought of being covered in honey or pollen. It just makes me think, oh, I want a shower.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Got to get a shower in after this. Yeah.
But yeah, I know I'm like a bit weird. I'm like such a freak with getting any dirt on me or any like substance on me.
Yeah, I've never been into like incorporating food into sex or anything like that. So,
but would this be erotic in the group?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean you could
really
you could post that right in there right now, and you get all sorts of like comments, thirsty comments about that. And look how it's got its tongue out. Like. Oh,
that's the tongue here. Wow.
Or I guess technically it'd be like.
Some sucker or something.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm gonna get crucified for not knowing. But yeah,
you're a leader. You should know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like I'm not a leader. I'm a curator. Like I'm just like I'm a keeper of the honey fuckers. Like they're a hive. They go do their own shit. I just make sure like they get put up when it's too cold out.
Oh, this one's.
That's a couple wasps getting their bang on right there.
Oh, that's how they do it?
I think so. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know again much about wasps, but I've actually seen them do that in real life, where they'll like connect their booties and like undulate and like,
All week I've been watching videos of wasps killing insects that are a lot bigger than them, and then just like cutting their body up and taking it back. did not know they did that. Like,
yeah,
wasps against crickets. And
slightly horrifying to me. And like, that's more into like the fear erotic side of me, to where like, you know, if you were that size, like that's like the evil version of a bee, like coming to like fucking like, you know.
Yeah, wasps are just
violence.
mean bees, aren't they? It's like,
huh?
Wasps are just mean bees.
Yeah, they're just demonic bees, basically.
Yeah.
Like the demon versions of, you know, are so like bees are the humans, and those are like the creatures from the darkness. The werewolf version of us.
Oh, this is hot.
Yeah. Good Lord, like good Lord. Yeah, like there's so much going on in that picture right there.
Like, first, how does a guy that wears this kind of hunting outfit get a girl that looks like this? Just putting it out there.
Mm-hmm. That's the obvious first thing that comes to mind.
Let's start with the fashion. And then this is a hot outfit there as well. It's a very hot
she's got those hot pants and stuff, and sports bra going on up there.
And this stinger is ready. Like, she is.
That's like, imagine them titties in your face, and then all of a sudden you're just like getting that sting on. And you know, wasps, they can sting multiple times. Like, they don't just got the one and done. Like, they can get you as many times as you're gonna stick around for.
Oh yeah, this is a wasp. I just read the words.
Yeah that one, that's pretty scary. And sometimes they'll do them with the multiple arms and stuff. Mostly the wasps I've seen depicted with the multiple arms.
And the legs are very human, but the arms are much more insectoid.
Yeah, that one's kind of scary. I think I'd be a little nervous.
Hot image though. I kind of want to recreate this in some adult videos.
Yeah. I would love to see that.
That's just a good position. Yeah.
Right. That is great.
This is the safe for work section. This is what makes me. Again, it's a great photo. And you can see every hair on this thing.
Yeah, they're fuzzy little guys.
Yeah. Incredible photo.
Yeah, and those eyes, you know, those big old eyes, like they're so cute. Like, especially when you get them like head on, and you know, there are some really adorable pictures of bees where they're just like looking at you, and like they got these big eyes and these little antennas, and they're just like bumbling around doing their thing. And then the bee butts, where their like butts are hanging out of the flower and stuff. Like, there's like a whole thing about bee
when
butts.
I see them this big, I just remember that movie Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I used to love that movie as a kid when I think they ride a bumblebee through the garden at one point.
Yeah, I'm sure that was a lot of people's like awakening and stuff. Yeah.
That's it. That's the safe for work.
That's the safe for work stuff. Yeah. So buckle up.
I think that was safe
children.
for work, right?
That'd be pretty safe. There's a couple that maybe toe the line of safe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you get caught looking at bee pictures at most workplaces, you might get an eyebrow raised, at least, questioned. I
don't know. I wonder. Maybe if like you get caught looking at bee pictures and you can't stand up,
Yeah, I could see that would be a little more of a thing. Yeah.
Okay, so the not safe for work section, no way I can put this on YouTube, but I will put it on Pornhub and adult sites.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, like talented artists.
Yeah, I wanted to show it because I think for the people that think, oh, it's weird, I just wanted to show that, yes, it's like it is erotic. Like, and I think that's more what it is. It's like, it is more like erotica, where you're just kind of just like triggering the brain, aren't you? You're just like looking for those like little points that just turn people on, and it could be something emotional, just like when she was flashing. It's just like that kind of situational.
Yeah. Or even those two bees and the honeycomb, just in that very like that closeness, that intimacy. You'll never know exactly what it is that, triggers you and gets you, hits something in you that you wish you had, or could, things you'll fantasize about until you actually, see it.
And I think I understand the appeal of the the drawings more than I do with the actual nature ones.
Right.
For me, they're harder to understand. I get the symbolism, but I don't understand why.
You couldn't picture yourself like tiny, like.
No, maybe I just don't have a good imagination. That could also be a thing. But the anime ones, the drawings, when it's still images, it's still hentai, right? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that Japanese kind of style. Yeah, I mean, you call it hentai.
I
some of the
get that
American
completely.
ones.
I get the curves. I get most of it, but actual nature, I struggle with. Right. I think that those distinctions are hard to get my head around.
Like I said, I have my narrow, it's not super narrow, but my scope of what I really enjoy, but that's maybe only 30% of what shows up on that sub. So it's such a all-encompassing kind of a thing that it attracts people of all these different kind of walks and everything. And one day there'll probably be more like niche subreddits and groups for the particular kind that you like popping up once it becomes bigger and more widely recognized as a legitimate fetish. I don't know,
it is it's a official paraphilia, but I think maybe this is slightly different, isn't it? It is different.
And some people are I think it's probably the most popular insect one. There's a couple of I think there's the Ant Fuckers Club is one of them, and they're people who get off on ants in a similar way. I think that one skews more into the real life stuff. I don't think it's as much drawings and hentais and depiction as it is more about the idea of ants crawling all over you and stuff.
Interesting how it's the hard-working insects that get all the sexy attention. I think there's a lesson in that for people that
and something about their drones.
Work hard.
Yeah, drones and the idea of they're subjects to a queen or a single entity, they're all sex slaves, kind of an idea. There's something I think wrapped up in that idea too about being not robotic in a way, but just maybe it's the having no choice, or it's their life mission or something is to I don't know, something wrapped up in all that, I think too.
Yeah, there's so many ways you can take the sexual metaphors. Just in so many directions. But I don't know. I think, is there anything else you think we should talk about before we wrap up?
There's one thing I've wanted to do for a while with the subreddit, and I guess I want to mention it here now just to kind of try to maybe pick up some traction, is when we caught 1,000 subscribers, we tried to have an art contest. And of course there really wasn't enough artists, or there wasn't enough knowledge about the subreddit for that to really take off. We had a couple of entries, and me and my friend, I think we just guilded them when Reddit Gold was kind of a bigger deal. We were we'll guild the winner with the most votes or whatever. I would like to do something again like that now, where we have an art contest with a bunch of our artists come in, submit things. But the way, I don't know exactly how it would work, but I would like to fundraise it for a beekeeping organization or a bee education organization, find a way to have this contest where people can participate and have fun. And I don't know whether it's auctioning off, of course I don't want to get into NFTs or anything, but auctioning off the stuff to raise money for bee education, bee awareness, actual beekeeping groups that they exist. It's something I would like to do with the subreddits. And I wanted to do it after we had that Vice article about us. I thought, this is the perfect time, strike while the iron's hot. But I just didn't do it. I didn't, it's one of those, it's kind of a nervous thing to organize a fundraiser, and so if anybody's interested in kind of helping me with that, you can, easily find me on Reddit. My username is Summary Executions. And that's, of course people are oh, your username is a war crime. It was more about, me trying to come up with a writing exercise when I joined Reddit with that name, trying to summarize things succinctly as well, let's take this idea and summarize it in a word or two. And that can kind of be like my novelty account idea. And it didn't really take off, like, you know, so fine, whatever. But the username stuck anyway. So, you know, that's just kind of like a lot of people kind of get thrown off by my username. And they're like, how does it feel to be named after a war crime? I'm like, well,
that's such
pretty fucking bad, I
it's
guess.
like...
But that wasn't my intention. But yeah, maybe I don't know, redo it one day or something. But yeah, if you have any interest or any knowledge about how to organize that kind of thing, I'm open to hearing about that, and, you know, having any assistance in that, because it's really only me and two other, maybe, I'm not sure if the third one's very active anymore, but two other moderators on the subreddit, and we basically just remove hate speech, remove bigotry, spam. Of course, all subreddits have a big spam problem. We get a lot of porn spam coming in about links to sites, links to merchandise, and we're trying, you know, constantly trying to get that stuff kept off. But like I said, with only 3 of us, it's kind of difficult. And, you know, I get nervous hiring mods just because it's like, you don't know who's going to go off the deep end and start deleting shit or banning people. And so I kind of like have to vet people and get to know them a little bit before I can, you know, give them moderator permissions. And so, yeah, I need help. You know what I mean? It's like kind of the sub's getting bigger and all that, and it's getting more popular, and there's getting, you know, sometimes we won't hit a post for 5-6 hours, and by then it's got like 12 reports, and I'm like, fuck, dude, I was asleep. Like, you know, it's like I can't be up 24 hours looking at this shit. And I try to get moderators who are in different time zones specifically for that, but it's like you can't expect these unpaid people to sit there on the side all day and police it. You know? But
well, I know the feeling just from like customer service on my own site. It's like when people have a problem, they want help immediately. It's like it's just me doing it, and it's like I'm asleep, and in the morning I got like 10 emails from them.
Yeah, and then it's like, man, I want to have breakfast first. Like I got shit to do, and then I will get to it. Like, you know, it's probably a little different with your job than it is with just like clicking remove on a post. But I mean, I work full time.
Similar, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Send some people your way.
Yeah, that would be dope. I would really like to do that just as a way to kind of like give back to the, you know, B world a little bit, and to kind of be a positive force. You know, sometimes
that's the thing. Yeah, that's what I was surprised about from the group, is that I spent so much time just reading and learning about bees and wasps and hornets, and it's funny how a porn group got me thinking bees are so cool and so amazing.
It's deceptively wholesome. Like, yeah, like a lot of the people are very sweet, and they care a lot about these insects. And they're first and foremost, we're all bee advocates. We're big on bee education, conservation, all these things. And we love them. And that's the reason, you know, that we have porn, is because we love them that much. Like, you know, but yeah, any way I can contribute back and everything would be really nice to at least have try to do something, even if we only raise a couple $100 for some beekeeper in Australia. I mean, that's pretty fucking cool. Like, upgrade his like hives, you know, his hive setup or something would be really neat to be able to do something like that.
So, like, first, thanks so much for coming on the show. Yeah. Like, it's been really cool. Like, just seeing all the different aspects, and it actually inspired me to like bees and be fascinated by them. And I feel like I understand almost like not an alternative lifestyle, but it's good to like get into other people's heads and see what makes them tick. And that's kind of fun for me.
This is a very special thing for a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons.
And your group's just on Reddit, or is it in other places too?
To my knowledge, there is a Discord group that's considered to be the unofficial official one. I've been pretty clear about wanting to keep it as quote unofficial as possible, just because I don't want a piece of it. I don't want any, you know, I just can't do it. I just can't moderate another group. They've invited me to, you know, officiate it and make it the official one, but there's a couple of people who are longtime members. One of them in particular is an artist in the group, and they run it. And to my knowledge, they do a pretty good job of keeping it clean. And as far as like, you know, because there's a couple of times people are like, hey, can I do it? And I'd kind of be like, well, yeah, I guess that's fine. And then like a month later, people will be DMing me like, you need to come to the Discord and look. Somebody's a Nazi. Somebody's doing this. And I'm just like, this is why I didn't want to fucking Discord. But there is the Discord. There's a couple of other sister subreddits that are kind of same vein. There's probably a Twitter sphere. Most of the artists are on Twitter.
Yeah, so, I'd really recommend everybody goes to the Honeyfuckers Reddit group and has an explore, and then just everything links off, I guess. So
just dig through. I mean, sort by top of all time, top of past year, top of 3 months, and just see what shows up. Like, you'd be shocked. Like, I mean, and not in a bad way. Like, there's a variety of content that comes up. Some of it is very, very fucking funny, whether you're into bees or not, and some of it is very wholesome, and some of it's very erotic. You get all types of content coming through there, and we try to, and it's a pretty accepting space. Like, we try to keep it pretty hate free. It's like LGBT friendly. It's I mean, we do our best to keep politics out of it. So just exactly. Occasionally somebody will come up about like, oh, so and so's like laws about this, and like some of that shit is important, yes, but this isn't really the subreddit to discuss that stuff.
Yeah, and so thanks again for coming on, and guys, please, if you want to get in touch, just message Ask Lustcast on Twitter or Instagram. In the show, on the podcast, you can use the link if you want to send me a voice message. Just feel free to reply to me, or maybe drop something in the Honeyfuckers group if you have questions about bees. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for having me.
Right.
Appreciate it.